Hi, this is Little Anthony here, and you're listening to Jim and Mike Talk Music. Or should I say musica?
I know you don't know what I'm going through. Standing here looking at you. Well, let me tell you that it hurts so bad. It makes me feel so sad.
We have a very special guest with us today. He's a singer and member of the singing group The Imperials. Over the years, he's had the pleasure of knowing Elvis, Buddy Holly, Red Fox, and Mary Wilson, to name a few. In 2009, the Imperials were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by no other than the great Smokey Robinson. Let's welcome to Jim and Mike Talk Music, Jerome Gourdine, otherwise known as Little Anthony.
And the crowd goes wild. They always go wild.
Yay!
We got a crowd here somewhere.
Now, do we call you?
Yeah.
Do we call you Jerome, Anthony?
You can call me Jerome. You can call me Anthony. You can call me, but you doesn't have to call me Little.
Okay, we won't do that.
You could call me Anthony. That's good.
We'll do
Okay.
Anthony. Yeah. So you were probably called Little because you started when you started. You were little. Is that where it came?
Well, actually, no. And let me set the record straight on that. That had nothing to do with my stature, my size at all. Because I'm actually 5'8.5". At least I was a few months ago.
You're taller than me.
A little bit
That's
older.
I'm
now.
5'8".
Yeah, right. So it was the late great Alan Freed, the father they call the father of rock and roll, in 1958. That the legend says that one of the record promoters came in his office to present the record. Tears in My Pillow, by the way, was the first big hit we had, and he heard it and he says, "Wow, boy, that girl sure can sing." And the record promoter said, "That's not a girl, that's a guy." And he said, "Really? He must be awfully little." And
Really?
there was
Wow.
the beginning of Little
Yeah.
Anthony.
And the rest is legend.
Yeah. So it's an assumption there. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So
Yeah, and that they ran and I had people actually bought me the original printing of Tears in My Pillow. It was just the Imperials.
Yeah.
They had to redo everything and within 2 hours because when Alan Freed said something, that was it. So he said Little Anthony and the Imperials, and they did the whole new thing on it, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed your New York hat. So you must be in New York. You're from New York.
No, I'm not.
right?
I'm
No?
from Brooklyn. Yeah. Sometimes I try to get ready to broke. The broke sneaks in now and then.
Mhm.
No, I lived out here in Florida like everybody. Doesn't everybody live in Florida?
Oh, really?
They all keep
We'll-
there.
we'll be heading there later. We'll
I'm
visit you
in
there later.
Yeah, I have friends.
our
moving-
retirement.
Okay, yeah, check me out. Check me out.
I have friends
And,
moving there.
yeah, I live in Florida.
Mhm.
Yeah. I live in Florida in Boca Raton.
Oh,
And but originally I'm from Brooklyn, and I was sort of a vagabond of life. I lived in a few places. I lived in New York for 30 years or so. And then I moved to California and I lived there for 32 years. And then I moved to Las Vegas and I lived there for 13 years.
Mhm.
And then I moved here, that's it, because I ain't got a whole lot of years to be moving. So this is it.
There's a lot of years right
this
there.
is where all your senior citizens come anyway. So here I am.
Let's go back to the beginning. So when did you start singing professionally? How old were you?
My mother tells me stories. My mother was one of the grails in my family. She said that I began to sing when I was about 3 years old. I sang in the hospital. When I was a little boy, I had problems with my back. In fact, I've always had problems with my back. That's another story. I just had surgery on it. But then I was 3 years old, and they were checking me out, and they said at nighttime I would stand in my crib and sing. And I would sing this song, that what I knew of it at 3 years old, from Annie, Get Your Gun. I think it was from that famous play and movie, Annie. Not Annie, what's the name? Annie Oakley.
Yeah.
And in that movie, there was a song that says, lay that pistol down, something like that. And she said, I didn't know the words. The nurses told my mother, so I kept saying, lay that pistol down, lay that pistol down, lay that pistol
over
down,
and over.
lay that all night long. Over and over, and the kids. And my mother knew that he's a singer because my mom is a singer. So it's genetic, I think. My great-grandfather was a great singer, they said. So music is a way of life in my mother's side of the family, and on my father's side of the family were mostly musicians. My dad was played with the big bands of the 30s and 40s, you know, some of the big ones, Buddy Johnson's orchestra, all that. So and my mother's a gospel singer.
Oh,
and so I was exposed to music for a very long time. So that's really making a long story longer. That's what 3 years old. So officially, yes, since I was 3 years old.
Yeah, your mother was singing gospel in worship services at church, or is she singing professionally as well out in the
She
clubs?
sang professionally and in worship services at church. Because I remember as a little boy, she would take me everywhere because, you know, she didn't have the resources to get babysitters in those days.
Yeah.
So she would take me, and I remember seeing my mother singing. She was a soprano, and she sang with my aunts, her sisters, and they were called the Nazareth Baptist Singers. Yeah. And I used to sit there and watch them sing in all the different churches. So, you know, and the fact that I, at 3 years old, started doing that, and then they exposed to me that by the grace of God. I tell people when they ask me sometimes, where did your voice come from? How do you do that, man? I mean, like your age. I said, because it's not natural. It's supernatural. It's a gift.
Yeah.
And it's a godly gift.
Yeah.
And so it amazes me. I mean, today I will sit and vocalize, or I'll be on stage when I was on stage after this pandemic.
Yeah.
I would hit notes and do things and go, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And the odd thing about it is that I'm not the first person that's happened to. I've heard stories from sports people, like Michael Jordan once said he made the most phenomenal shot, and it was recorded on TV and tape, and I've seen it. He made the shot was unbelievable, and he turned around and he looked at everybody and go, what was that?
Where'd that come from?
Know where it came from.
It's like perfection, right? It's like perfection, like for that shot.
You know that there's much more than you, because this is not chance, luck, whatever you want to call it. Something's going on here. I'm doing it, but everybody does it. But why does my shot keep going in? Well, that's the same way with me as a singer. And I'm sure with Smokey Robinson, a lot of other singers that have been successful, we all kind of know that what we have is a gift. It's just uniquely a gift. Michael Jackson, wonderful. You
just
know,
a natural.
You go on and on. And Sammy Davis and on, all the greats. Frank Sinatra. There's something. Look at Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
You know, and I talk to Tony. You know, he says, "Man, we the last of the tenors." He said, "Ain't many left."
Yeah, he's one of the last crooners. You know,
he's one of the last crooners and of that era.
Paul Anka.
And I think that me and Smokey are the last crooners of our era. There's not much crooners left that are still here.
Paul Anka's still around, but I don't know what era.
Yeah, I work with Paul. I work with Paul, and a couple of years ago we did a cruise together. He did a concert or so. I know Paul from the beginning. I met him very young. Yeah. What's
that like on a cruise? Something you want to do again, or is it more fun or more work?
Hey, no. That's fun. That's ridiculous. They pay you to get on the show. And you only do 2 shows, maybe sometimes one. They call it one up and one down, or you do 2. The first did a seating and the second did a seating. But the rest of the week,
relax.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
What do you do? You're a captured audience yourself. Where you going to go? In the ocean? You got nowhere to go when you're out to sea. So that's it. You're forced to relax, you know, and allow them to pamper you. Now, cruises are real good. We're going on the first cruise going out in November on the Malt Shop cruise coming up out of November. That's the Time Light cruise. They've been doing it for 10 years. One of the most successful cruises of its kind. And we got a bunch of people on it. In fact, I wasn't supposed to be on there But they called me up and asked me to take Mary Wilson's place.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was scheduled to be on that. And they got Gladys Knight on there and a bunch of people, the Righteous Brothers. I don't know. I'm grabbing things over my mind. Jane the Americans, people like that. And they called me to come in. And I'm actually going as a solo artist because it was last minute. I'm not bringing the group or anything like that. It's just me doing a segment in there sort of to cover what she did. And I've been very successful on the cruises. I've been going out with Time Life now for 12 years, 10 or 12, 11 years now. So they always call me every other year. I'll go on that cruiser, but they asked me to do it this year because after the pandemic, they wanted everything to be wonderful. And that happened. And, the fans were like really stunned and said, hey, you're the guy that can come in and cover that and people will be at peace. Oh, yeah, Little Anthony's here.
Yeah.
That kind
of. No, that they use the same band?
Yeah, it's the same orchestra. When Paul Anka came, they brought on the ship like 32 pieces.
Wow.
Islands and everything.
Extra 32 pieces.
Yeah. I use something like on the stage about 11. I'll bring six. They have singers that are already on the ship. One of the really great backup groups that we send all that information. My conductor talks with them. Then we have rehearsals when we get on the ship. So they'll be the ones that'll be backing up. They're called the chicklets, young ladies. So they'll be doing all the background work, So, and then I have 4 or 5. I have 8-piece horn section plus a rhythm section plus 2 keyboards and a lead piano. So it's pretty intense.
That would be a great experience live. Yeah, that would be cool.
It is. Yeah, for me, it's really great because these people, I'm no better than the people that back me up. It really does. It's a support system that any singer is honest with themselves they need. Stupid me going out there singing by myself, it wouldn't work. I could put it off though, but it wouldn't work. Not really.
So back to the 50s, like in the mid 50s, you were a teen.
Yeah, I was.
Before rock and roll, there were blues, jazz, country, swing, big band. But what were your first impressions of rock and roll, this thing called rock and roll?
Well, rock and roll is just a term. Okay. That was termed by Alan Freed. Oh, okay. Really, it's rhythm and blues. Yeah. Like I tell people, it was rhythm and blues. It was always rhythm and blues. From the beginning was gospel or spiritual music, and then spiritual music gave birth to the jazz and to Dixieland, and then all kinds of different sounds of jazz coming up. And then it went into the big bands. It gave birth to the R&B. R&B then is the father and mother of rock and roll.
It's just more aggressive somehow. It's just
each generation has their own thing going. If you're an aficionado, one of these days I'm going to say that right. How do you say that? Aficionado.
Aficionado.
There you go. I'm glad you said it. Not me. You said it. That's what I want to say. They will study. They studied that, and they were amazed at how the music has moved from one genre to another. In other words, now what is it? Rock and roll then gave birth to hip hop. But in the beginning, the first time the backbeat of the drum became more prevalent. The backbeat of the drum happened in the 20s in Dixieland. What the horns are doing, fighting against each other, not fighting it's organized chaos, really. And they're doing all that stuff, and that drum back's going pop, pop. Well, that was the first time it really showed up, because prior to that, it was more like the 40s type thing, swing music. Which usually the drummer would do a lot of improvising, or he used brushes, but it was really coming into a point where you start hearing pop, 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 keeping the rhythm. That forced kids to be able to dance and hold their rhythm. Even if there's kids that really don't know how to dance, if they can understand the beat and stay on that, they tend to, they may look a little weird, but they're moving, they're doing it. And that created something uniquely different that really began to grow until the kids in the 50s picked it up. And then, of course, then Dick Clark came along, and then you start seeing the Dick Clark show and the kids doing the stroll and all through all of that. This is what you hear in the background.
Yeah. So your fans, your listeners are moving, not just listening, not sitting there listening to the orchestra. You know, they're actually standing, moving while they're listening.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a great classical music fan and opera fan. Believe it. That's a long story. I do love opera, and I'm trying to get to Italy, go to La Scala and listen to some opera. It's deep. I'm just an opera fan, and there you're listening to the melody and the harmonics, and the movement of the music is like the waves on the ocean. It's just very gentle. But then you go from that and you go to rock and roll, and it's just the opposite. It's like a storm. It's like it's a hurricane. Bow, boom, bam. And the amazing thing about it is Pavarotti loved it. Luciano Pavarotti loved it. He did a thing with James Brown.
I didn't know that.
Quite a few other. Yes, he did. You can probably Google it. And the concert he did with James Brown, they did the song that It's a Man's World. Yeah. They did a duet together. It was the most fascinating thing I have ever heard in my entire career. This opera singer singing, and he was so effective because he was singing within his genre. And James was singing within his thing, but they really were the same thing, you know? Yeah. And it was just absolutely marvelous. So, like I said, when you're listening to music, the music that makes us get up and dance is really because of the beat. The beat originally comes from Aborigines, or come from Africa, or comes from places where the drum was the main instrument, probably the very first instrument man ever messed with. I mean, I don't know that.
Yeah,
beating on
goatskin strapped around a carved out piece of wood, right? When you look back at the music in Europe, so many centuries ago, right? You have all these strings, but you don't have that percussion. You don't have that interesting and driving percussion.
Well, actually, you do. If you listen to the music out of Ireland, they did.
The Boran, yeah.
Your body wants to go with it, you see. So the drum really, I think, is the first instrument ever was.
When we're looking back at the 50s, especially I'm thinking of that, we had at that time a racial segregation and a lot of stuff was going on there. But at the same time, I think that the musicians were breaking through first. I mean, I know that they were breaking through ahead of the current predominant culture. Anything to talk about there in the 50s? Well, even in the 50s, actually, arts is the arts. It always is the forefront of breaking through any kind of relationship between peoples. Right. Whether it be plays, Shakespeare, or whatever it may be, George Bernard Shaw, and on and on and on and on. The visual arts.
You get to music. Yeah. And that sort of draws people, even if you have differences, you are attracted. Both of you now have something in common. You're attracted. So the music and it's the same thing happened in the 50s, and I was coming up. And it was not a wonderful time because you were black. No, it wasn't, especially in the South. But it was the one thing that God has given us. And you always hear me talking about this God. Well, I don't stand there to tell anybody whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, yes, he exists. And he has created a situation with us, these little avenues that bring us together. And music is one of those things, And in the 50s, man, that's how it was. Even in racial relations, especially in the South, were horrible. And because I went down there, my mother originally was from the South, and my dad, mom from Savannah, Georgia. My dad was from Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah. So they came up with the real brunt of the horror.
Yeah, and they know all that history. Then, yeah,
they do. They try to tell us, listen, when you go down there, this is what you have to do in order to survive. Because I actually went down, my first time was in 1958, and we had Tears in My Pillow out. I never got far as Jersey up to that point. And next thing I know, I'm on a tour with Sam Cooke and a bunch of thousand other greats. And we're touring all over the country, including the South, which were segregated audiences in most instances and all of that. So I was introduced to something that was it was like throwing cold water on me, man. Whoa. This culture, what? And then I remember my mother and father always taught me, this is what you got to expect. Because I actually called my mother crying once because I ended up in place in Richmond, Virginia, because there were segregated hotels and everything. We couldn't stay at any of the nice places, though we had all the money we needed to do that. But we couldn't, and so we had to stay at guest houses and stuff. And we stayed at this little dinky hotel on the other side of the tracks, as they say. And I can remember vividly a light hanging over my head. It was all I had. And the bed had one of those things where you put a quarter in, and then the bed would shake and give you a massage or something.
And
they had
remember the
radio.
vibrating beds, yeah.
I
don't know what that was for, actually, but, put you to sleep or something else. I don't know.
And they had a radio. If you want to listen to music, you had to put a quarter in the radio.
Wow.
And here I'm in this terrible room with a light hanging over me, a bulb, and I don't live like this.
Yeah.
And I cried. And I remember I called my mother in tears. I can't stay. I'm coming home, Mom. I can't do this.
You were
this
like 17, 18
Not
years old.
knowing that I was 17.
Okay.
And not knowing that I was eventually going to be in something even worse. And my mother, God bless her, and my dad, they were the ones that really prompted me up, one, by my faith, and two, I had a support system, a huge family, and they were all rooting for me. No, you fight through that. You got to do this. It's important that you do this. In fact, like a lot of people who met Dr. Martin Luther King, I remember I met him in Atlanta airport back then, and he's, little Anthony. I met him in the hallway, coming between planes, and we talked. He said, I love that. And I wanted to say that, sir, you have been just something. I want to do more. He said, you know what you do? You do what you do. You just keep doing what you do.
Yeah.
That's all you do. Let us do what we do.
That's great. Use your gift, use your skill, and get out there.
Yes.
We're talking about the South. I grew up here in the Lehigh Valley, along with Jim here. I spent 25 years down in Virginia. Virginia is just like halfway to the South, right?
Well, yes.
It's not like Mississippi, Georgia, Carolinas. There's still a difference.
That's changed a lot.
Yeah, there's still a difference. But when you go back to the 50s or what I experienced, the 70s and the 80s, there's still a big difference. Even back then, there was a difference between the South and the North. I didn't know what was going on living here in the North.
Well, here's the thing that I found is that I remember when I would go down south, everybody had an accent. All the white folks' accents, blacks had accents, entirely different than New York blacks.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of getting used to how they talk. Almost sometimes I couldn't understand them. We're talking English, but it was English I didn't know. My English was New York City English, babe.
Yeah.
You didn't. That kind of
So you'd have to learn how to talk different.
How you doing? That was my English.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out what they're talking, what they're doing. But in the years went by, and as the technologies and things grew, and then industries starting to move from the north to the south. Well, when the industry started going south, that's why they call it the New South, because it was beginning to bring in people from other parts of the country now live in the South. So whether they interbreed or marry or do what they do, the brogue if anybody notices this, that Southern brogue is almost gone. I'm amazed when I go and I go, wait a minute. Everybody's talking like me. What happened to that Southern accent?
Just the blending,
if you go to Mississippi, you go to Alabama, it's like being in Michigan now. And that's a fact. Because I travel all over this world. I'm constantly out here. And I'm in there and I noticed this. It's a remarkable thing, but it's really the New South. It's not what it was then. Then I was in the struggle, and a lot of people don't know that, but me and a bunch of other people, we were in the struggle. Whether we wanted to be or not, we were in the struggle. And I can truthfully say, boy, we haven't gotten there yet, but we've come a long way.
I want to talk about your song, Tears on My Pillow. This went to number 4. So it's sad, you had this top 10 hit and you still had to endure with segregation. I mean, but my mom said, it's your job.
Yeah. That's your job.
It's your job. I mean, what you do.
You sold 1 million copies.
You do it to the best of your ability.
That song sold 1 million
It did.
copies.
It sold millions.
Yeah.
It did. Well, listen, here's an odd thing about how stupid segregation is.
Yeah.
Because the people that were segregated still wanted me to sing for them. They liked the music.
Yeah.
They liked the people that were singing it. And they could somehow in their little pea minds, they've separated. Hey, man, you're smacking my brother and sister in the face, and you're looking at me and like, but you're different.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. That's, it's still
because
senseless.
If you didn't know who I was, I could walk into a Woolworths. In those days, Woolworths is a big place to go.
Yeah, I remember.
And I couldn't sit at the counter.
Wow. Yeah.
So it took like people like Reverend Luther King and Malcolm X and all these different people that came in, leaders that came in and began to show us and them. You know the thing about the men, you can't change the morals of man. Only the man's heart can be changed. And only one that can change a man's heart is God, Jesus himself. Because we can't do it. If you don't believe that, you just look at the world the way the world is today. I will tell you that I have seen so many people so scared and so depressed and so they don't know where to go. And I keep saying
it's been a really rough.
You have to go through that.
Yeah, and there's been
I mean all over the world.
So much going on.
I'm talking to my friends in England and France and people I know, and and I try to calm them down in the reason. And I said, why are you so afraid? Then I found out because they don't have an absolute. They don't have a faith. They don't have something they can know is bigger than them. And that is sovereign. And that everything is going to come to a conclusion. It's going to work. It's going to come to a God. Don't let anybody kid you. This man is love. I'm a man. And I don't have any answers. It likes to put the slogans on TV, love this and love that. Well, if you don't understand what love is, first of all, if you don't understand what God's love is, it's very difficult to love anybody because we deal with our emotions. We're emotional beings. We were designed that way, not to use our emotions to do things we do, but we still have emotions. And so you get people who are born not born, but who are exposed to stuff. If you take two babies, you take a white baby, a Chinese baby, 3, any one of them, and put them together, they will play, and they don't understand anything. All that's taught. You see the birds out there? Look at the nature. God puts a tapestry for us to see. Look how they cooperate with one another. I mean, I saw a yellow bird just the other day, and the red bird, they was up on top of a tree together. And they were chirping, and I got to the conclusion they was talking to each other.
Right, and those three babies you're talking about, they're going to grow up and they're going to see that one is black, one's white, and one's brown, and only because and there's not a problem with it. There's not a problem with it.
No, because as long as they don't have that evil, it's another entity in this world. If people know it or not, it is, and gets in them. Then they're going to separate everything. The idea is to separate you from the love of God. That's all it's designed to do. Because if you know you're cool, then you're not going to be all beat up. And you know what? I think Jesus said about anybody, there's going to be tribulation in the world. But be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. So I'm human. I don't have no death wish. I wear my mask. I do all the things everybody else does. But I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
I'm not to a point where it like paralyzes me.
That's good.
I enjoy even doing this talk with you guys. I enjoy talking to people. I love doing this stuff. I have a lot of artists that like Greta Garbo. Like Greta Garbo, they go around, I want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. No, I'm not designed to be alone.
Yeah.
So Anthony, talk with you guys.
So Anthony, in the big picture, then, your faith and the existence of God and faith allows you to have no fear now, but also to have the hope and to see the bigger picture. With Black Lives Matter, with all that's going on, it's been a huge year, for Black Lives Matter and everything. I love to see all shades walking it too. You can
use all the cliches. You can use all the cliches you want. All lives matter, man. As far as God's concerned, you don't see he's not dealing with you. What you look like, he's dealing with who you are inside you.
Right. But what I'm saying is that hope that you have.
So I understand why people say what they say, but that's not it. Everything matters.
But the hope that you have, that allows you to see, to have the hope to see that there is still hope for people
Yes.
of all kinds to love each other.
I get my information from the Word of God, and it says life is in the tongue. Life and death is in the tongue. You can speak, you can say, you can do all the political crap and run around. Nobody can help nobody, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
But you have the ability to
Right.
speak life. And what I'm speaking now is life. I'm not mad at nobody.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, it comes out of me, not because it's a cliche or something I want everybody to like me or don't like me, because there are people that won't like me. Well, that's life.
That's
Yeah.
hard to
That's what's
imagine.
in me. Yeah. That's
No,
in
I'm
me to speak.
serious.
That way, I speak life, hope,
Mhm.
because that's who I am. I'm not afraid. I know where I'm going when I leave this earth. I'm just going to go transition to where my God is. So I'm not really into that. I try to teach my children that. Hopefully they teach their children that. And we as a community, we do that. We're going to make a little bit of better world. It's going to work better. When you start speaking life into people, they're going to act it out. You start speaking death into people. Oh, the world's coming in. Oh, my luck is going down the drain. Oh, life is horrible. Oh, well, that's what it's going to be, my friends. That's exactly where you are. I'd rather speak the other way, like I'm speaking.
Yeah.
I always say people need to turn off the news, turn off and turn on music.
I do.
Listen to an album and just
listen to music. Look, what does it say? It says, think of those things that are worthy, that are good, that are trustworthy, that are lovely, that are. Paul said that I don't focus on. I know what's going on around me. I'm not a little. So no, I'm affected by it. Yeah, but I'm in this.
Do you
world.
let it?
I'm not.
But you don't let it rule your life.
No. The only thing, what I'm thinking about right now? My daughter and I and my grandchildren are going to the zoo. That's where my mind is at.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Don't you want to do things that make you?
I don't have an agenda. Yeah, I don't have an agenda. I don't need to worry about how powerful. Gentlemen, I know a lot of great performance entertainers and a lot of people in the industry, and because of being a singer, you get to meet wonderful, wonderful, powerful people, rich. And I can truthfully say I've met some that are quite at peace with themselves. They understand that, even with their riches. But I've met people who got everything in the world and the most miserable people on the earth.
Yeah.
And that was my question. Along with your faith, Anthony, what other musicians can share that beautiful time on stage, and sharing your faith? Is there others, who have you had some of those experiences with?
Well, I found out that I oftentimes would be on stage and singing. And there was a time when we would go outside and sign, the guys and I would sit at the table and sign autographs and pictures. And I've had people come up to me, and sometimes people come to me and says, "Oh, I just see God in you." I didn't tell her anything. I didn't sing any religious song on TV. I didn't sing it on the stage, which I do sometimes. If it comes over me, I want to do it. I want to feel something's in me to say it. I will, but that's not my thing is to do what I was created to do, and that's to bring a sense of peace for that 90-minute show. That one moment, I am taking you out of the world where all the problems are, and you can rest on the things that make you feel good, those things that are lovely, those things that are good to you, memories. Oh, that's when I met my wife. This is when my kid was born.
Yeah.
That's what I'm designed to do. That's my ministry. But also, when I'm not singing, I'm talking to you guys. Yeah. So I have an opportunity to speak my faith.
Right, and it's so valuable. It's so
sometimes
valuable.
when I'm on stage, there's no pattern. There's really no pattern. It's just, I know when it's time to say something out there, when it's time to just keep doing what I'm doing and go that way, or, okay, I sense, maybe I need to say something.
Yeah, and that's what's so beautiful about the podcast. When Jim and I do this podcast, our focus is music, but it can go all these different directions. It can end up in somebody's an author writing a book, somebody they're talking about their family, and for you, our listeners are going to hear from this that there is a way to combat fear, this fear that's been gripping us, especially for the last 1 year.
Yes, and I try to tell people,
or 4 years. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, listen, it's a drag. You know what? I had not been in the airport told my road manager, and she cried laughing. I said, Julie, I couldn't believe it. I went to see my grandchildren in Seattle, which was difficult as it were because Seattle was such a shutdown, Washington was such a shutdown state. But finally, they left some of the restrictions up, and then my wife and I decided we were going to go to Seattle. We had to get a test and all of that, COVID test, before we went. Some states are really. I'm living in Florida. We're the rebels of the whole country. Everybody says, "How can you do that?" Because we do it. That's why we do it. And so I went up there, and I was going to the airport, and I told my wife, "Oh my goodness, I never thought I would miss an airport. I miss being at the counter. I miss going through the gate. I miss going through security. It's because it's my routine." You ever have baseball players talk about their routine? It's the same thing. You have a routine. This is what you do, and you get it, and you flow in that. You flow in that rhythm, and what happens, I found out, and many of us take it for granted. Once if you're doing something you really enjoy doing, you watch when you can't do it for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah.
You realize how much you miss it. Yeah, because you're in that routine.
Talking with family, hugging family, that kind of stuff. It's very, very valuable. I've been missing it. We've all been missing it.
The thing good about this, I've never seen so many people come together, families come together through this pandemic. For what is meant for evil, God said that he means for good. So that it's actually out of this pandemic, there was something good happen. Yeah. It was families and people, because they had to come together, had no choice. We're all the same boat, so to speak. Planet Earth. We had to deal and cooperate with one another. We had to. So we were forced into this thing. So the good out of this is that families got closer. Man, I've seen more of my grandchildren, my great grandchildren I haven't seen in years. My grandchild just left here. I mean, because I'm here. Grandpa, my dad is always on the road, right?
Yeah. So you probably.
And now I'm here.
You're out to sea.
Well, I think my wife wouldn't want me to go back on the road, but hey, that's another story.
We might not have time for that one.
Because I'm like a fish out of water, man. I get in the way, and this is her world, and I get in the way. But this is what us singers and performers and artists, we do. We take that away from us. And it's weird. And like a woman once told me, she says, well, I didn't see you. How do you feel like working? I said, lady, I don't work. You work. Yeah. I sing. That's not
and
work.
You enjoy what you do. That's not work.
The work is getting to the gig, but once I'm on that stage.
Yeah.
Anthony, you've met so many different people and had rubbed elbows with them, sang with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's.
Can you tell us about? I know you met Buddy Holly, which is incredible.
Buddy.
Now, what do you know? Remember what year that was? Because I know he was.
Yeah, that was 1958.
Okay.
1958. Yeah, I met him at the Hopkins Hotel in Cleveland.
Okay.
We were doing in those days called record hops. You guys are too young for that. Those days, record hops were where you promoted your records. You lip sync. You really didn't sing anything. Yeah. They would put on your record, you lip sing it, but the fact that the kids could see you physically was a turn on. So places, thousands of people, So, which was very easy to say that lip sync your own song. Yeah. So that's why I met him. He was going. We were coming in the lobby, and I said, "Oh shoot, that's Buddy Holly." And at the same time, he said, "Oh, that's little Anthony." We just gravitated. Yeah. And he had such a sweet spirit. He was so shy, man. Yeah. So real. I mean, this whole thing, this kid is from Lubbock, Texas, you guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's thrown out in this world. But it didn't affect him in a negative way. He was sort of just kind of doing it the way I was talking to him so he can get back to Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah.
Like where things were more normal to him.
Yeah.
But that's what he did. He enjoyed playing his guitar. He enjoyed singing. And, Buddy was something else, man. They were the first, I would believe, white rock and roll group ever to play the Apollo.
Very cool.
And received love. Peggy Sue, man. I love that song to this. I swear.
I love Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
It's amazing, though. He only had he didn't have that long of a career, unfortunately, before he passed
No,
away.
he was like a shooting star, and just ping. And but I was wondering. Oftentimes I wonder, boy, what else could he have done? Because I think Buddy was beginning to grow.
Yeah,
and the songs he was beginning to go like a lot. I watched the Beatles grow from the first time they started to when they blew. They just grew. When they did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Band album, it was the end of the planet. Because it was like all singers, all performers, everybody going, what was that?
Huge.
Because they went to another level. Yeah, they went to another level.
They purposely did that. They took it to another level each time. When you could see that going.
You know what they were? If you know Liverpoolians, I call them Liverpoolians, like Brooklynite people in America. Yeah, they're unique, and I love them, and I love being in Liverpool because they're just like me. I mean, we all think alike. They're like they were always the drudge of England. Like, who cares? If you didn't like it, you throw it to Liverpool. It was like where all the merchant ships would come in, just like Brooklyn.
A couple months ago, we talked to a Liverpoolian, if you call him that.
Yeah.
Joey Mullen.
Joey Mullen,
Joey Mullen from Badfinger.
Yeah.
We got to talk.
Joey Mullen, yes.
Yeah, he was born in
those guys.
Liverpool.
And they're like, they don't look, they know that, hey, I ain't supposed to get out of here. They're taught that this is where you're going to be. They're in a class system there in England. Yeah. This is where you're ever going to be. Well, here's the thing, that they're doing something that the rest of the world's catching on to. They had nothing to lose. Paul McCartney talks about that all the time. They had nothing to lose. So what they did, these guys were great musicians,
Oh, yeah.
They
songwriter.
Just kind of
great songwriter.
Incredible.
Yeah, they didn't have any fear. Like, it was like, okay, let's do this. What the heck? And they would do it and be a hit. And they go, well, shoot, if we did it one time, let's do it again. They kept going up and up. And what they did was they began to grow even as musicians. Because when you hear Yesterday, you say, what? You hear something by like George Harrison, you go, what?
Yeah, Something in the Way, yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Awesome.
To sweetness. It's a gift that you were talking about. They're all gifted.
Yes. They were guys that didn't know, and a lot of people I talked with in Liverpool, because I went down to the club where they used to play, me and my son, because my son is my manager, and we went in there just to see how it was down there. And it was a little small little club. And so much history came out of there, man. Eddie Hendrix, all the greats played down in that cellar.
Oh, the Cavern Club. There. Are you talking about the Cavern Club?
Yeah, that one in Liverpool. Like you go down the stairs.
Joey told us all about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and all over the wall, you see all the history. They like put in murals all over the place.
Wow.
And pictures and stuff. So there's a lot of history there, and it's still a working club, by the way.
Yeah. Did you ever meet any of the Beatles, like at cross paths?
Never. The only thing that I remember, gentlemen, was that George Harrison was the biggest fan of us. He loved us.
That's cool.
Yeah, in fact, he recommended we open up for them when they first came to America in New York City. They were going to play Shea Stadium, and they wanted an opening act. And George told the guys, "Man, Little Anthony Imperials, man, we should have them open for us." But we were like very snobbish at the time because we were thinking, who are them foreigners to tell us who opens for who?
Yeah. You should be able to have the say.
Yeah. You should be opening for us.
Yeah.
I'm not going to open no bugs. What is that? You know who they were. We saw the signs everywhere. The Beatles will come in. We're going, what is a Beatle? I heard that song. It was the most hokeyest
infestation.
If you're from the South, there's some big Beatles down there.
We heard the song.
You got bigger Beatles down there.
Like Locust. The Locust are coming.
Sure. And the music, we were going, what is that? That song is, that's weird. And so we didn't really think a lot of them. So we turned it down. This is one of the great moves of Little Anthony and the Imperials. We turned it down. They in turn put the chiffons open for them.
Yeah, wow.
Now, I was just telling the guys, we looked back, I told Ernest, it was the last remaining of the original Cats. And he said, that's the stupidest thing we ever did.
Yeah, right.
Imagine if we would have went, it would have given us another kind of a career.
Yeah, it would have been different. What about Elvis now? You have met Elvis.
Elvis I had an intimate relationship as much as that I knew him. I first met Elvis through Chuck Berry. Okay. Because him and Chuck were friends back in the day.
Yeah.
And we were on tour, and Elvis at that time was pretty big. And this is just before he went in. When did he go into service? In 57 and 58 or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
When he went in the Army. I can't remember. But it was just before he went in the Army, and he came backstage, and he had blue suede shoes was out, and another one. He had, I forget, Jailhouse Rock? No. I can't remember. But it was big. It was big. And I met him. I said, "Oh, how you doing, man?" He knew everything about it. Maybe one of them songs. Yeah. And he knew all about us. So that was the beginning of this relationship. And as it were, life kept putting us boom, the boom, the boom. We kept hitting either in the airport or somewhere. And then one time we were working in Vegas, and this is when he, long after he came out of service, sort of his comeback. It was like 71, 72, 71. Yeah. In that time period, he was working at the hotel in those days. It was called the gosh, I can't even remember the name, but it's known as the Hilton. And those, well, no something, another name I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But we were working the theater, and he was working the main room, and we were working the theater with Red Fox. Yeah, it was us and Red Fox and Bobby Vinton.
What a combination! What a combination!
Oh, that's Vegas. That's how Vegas was, in those days.
Yeah. Well, here, we have something right here.
This cracks me up.
Take a look. Go. Red Fox. Can you get closer?
Red Fox, you got it.
Yeah, you take it closer.
That's my father on the road. My dear friend.
I love that.
But anyway, we're working in there. So Red and Elvis met years ago, and he was a big fan. So we did the show, and then somebody came in our dressing room and said, "Oh, Red said to tell you Elvis is going to be, because he's playing the main room." He was big, man.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And he's coming in here to see us. And then so one of the guys said, "He ain't coming to see us. He's coming to see Red Fox." But actually, he was coming to see the whole show. Yeah. Because the lounge shows in those days, the last show was 2 a.m. Wow. So his show was over like 1. Yeah. And so he came over with his entourage. DeVito, all those guys. I know all those guys. The Memphis Mafia.
Yeah, you got it.
And they came. They're all sitting there with the girls, of course. And so Red says, "Hey, man, come on, and I'll introduce to Elvis." I said, "Well, I met him some time ago." And went to his table, and he said, he called me Anthony. Anthony. Yeah. And I said, "How you doing? How you doing?" Yeah. Oh man, the show was this and that, and he was raving. And we sat down there till about 3:30 in the morning, man, just shooting the breeze, laughing, telling jokes and stuff. And then he was up. He had his suite. And gentlemen, that suite looked like a 4,500 square foot house. That's the suite in the old Hilton.
Yeah.
That's the suite.
Well, he'd get the best, right? The best would be for him.
Yeah, we came up to his suite, hung out, and he started doing all his karate stuff, telling jokes. And that was the beginning of our relationship.
He didn't shoot off a gun or anything.
That was our relationship.
Yeah.
Him and Clarence, one of the original Imperials, we're Brooklyn kids. We love guns. I'm not a gun guy. Anyway, Clarence and him used to go out in the desert at night with nothing to do because he couldn't go anywhere because he was so big. Yeah. So they would sneak off and they would go to the desert and shoot their guns.
And who was that? Who was doing
Elvis and Clarence?
Yeah, Clarence and Elvis shooting guns.
That's when I met. Yeah, shooting guns, man. And then I met his wife, Priscilla, and we got to the point where it got that friendship. It wasn't like we were in his house all the time or anything, in Memphis or anything, but there was a bond. We don't know what it was, just friendship. I was normal with me doing with Elvis, hanging with Elvis. And he one time called and said, "Listen, Priscilla's coming to New York City. You guys we were at the Jewel Box Americana Hotel on 57th Street, 6th Avenue." And he said, they called and says, "Hey, my wife is coming there. Could you kind of look out for her? She's coming to see the show where you guys are doing at the hotel." And the funniest part about it, she came down, coming to the lobby, and our phone rang up in our suite. And it says, the guy says on the other side of the phone, is this little Anthony? I said, whatever. Somebody said, "Yeah, he's right here. Can I speak to him?" And I said, "Yeah, what's up?" "There's a Priscilla Presley down here."
Priscilla wants to talk.
Came, yeah. All right. I said, it's Priscilla Presley, dude. Of course it's all right for her to come up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of trust we had. And he told us, hey, man, just look after. Because he knew us.
That's trust. That's real trust.
We took her shopping on Madison Avenue. Harold did. Her and her girlfriend. And she was a knockout, man. I mean, she was just a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And so we looked after them, and nobody. And the thing about it, we ended up actually on the news by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. It wasn't me. It was Harold, our conductor at the time. Took her to Central Park. Well, the local news stations, ABC, CBS, all of them, was covering a smoke out in Central Park when they, yeah, man, yeah, brother, peace and love, brother.
Yeah.
The whole thing is Central Park, where there's so much marijuana in the air that got the entire city high. I mean, that's what it was. And New York was like an oasis for that sort of thing. So they were all in the park. And so Howard took her to the park. And we were so mad at Howard. We said, why did you take her to the park? Because the camera's going around and boom, it hits Priscilla Presley. And there's Howard sitting there and they interview her. And I said, I was going to find about this. Our friendship is done.
Did she want that or not? Did she want the camera or not? Or was she shy of the camera? Did she want the camera?
She's Priscilla Presley. When the news, the media, they saw her. Whoa, that's Priscilla Presley.
Yeah.
She's in here. Wow.
Yeah.
Goes the camera. And I'm going, oh my, it's all over the news. My mother calls me. My mother says, oh, you in the news with Priscilla Presley. One of the Imperials on the news. I'm going, oh, no, where? Central Park. I go, oh, no. Clarence had to call Elvis. He laughed about it. He was that how was the safety at that point? Was it all pretty safe doing that? Because the mayor at that time was Mayor Lindsay. Mm-hmm. And he was a very liberal kind of guy, liberal sort of politician. So in order to appease the people of New York, he made that day a smokeout. It's called the Great New York Smokeout. Yeah. That anybody smoke marijuana, and they can go to Central Park and they block it off, and just the people want to come in.
Wow.
As long as you stay in the park.
I had never heard of that.
And that's what it was. So that they were covering that. They weren't looking for her.
Yeah.
They just saw her. She didn't know in the house. I told her, how did you do that? Well, I didn't know there was going to be anything like that. I said, don't you look at the news, you dumb clock. So that's the kind of relationship I had with Elvis all the way up until he died. In fact, Esposito, his main dude that was in the army with him in the tank corps, was his main guy. And we did a thing in Palm Springs, and I don't remember, it was 95, 96 concert, and he came over. He came over to see us, and we sat in the dressing room and laughed and talked about all those days. You could see in his face that he had that love for him. Those two. I don't know about all the others, those guys, because they were like, I don't know who those guys were, but him, that was like brother, little brother, big brother. They were in the army together type thing.
Yeah. Now, you had something in common with Elvis. You have the same birthday.
Yeah. Me and a bunch of other people.
My mom, she was born in 1926. She was born on January 8th.
January 8th.
On Elvis's birthday.
Ain't that something? I don't know if that's bad or good or what.
She loved Elvis. And that's how from a young age, I started listening to Elvis. So
the three of you share that same birthday, January 8th.
He was very unique for years. People thought, not years, but for the time then, people thought he was black. Because, we didn't have what we have today. Like I'm talking, you guys on podcasts and cell phones. They didn't exist.
You just hear him on the radio.
You basically, if you didn't see him on Dick Clark Show or Ed Sullivan Show or something, you didn't really know.
You didn't know what they look like.
Yeah. It's sometimes better that way. Hey, we have to pause for a public service announcement.
You'll get a kick out of it.
Oh, that's good.
Hi, do that. This is Little Anthony here with a reminder that cowboying is great in the rodeo arena, but has no place on the highway. The really big man is the one who got that way driving carefully. It's nice having you here.
Do you remember that?
Do you know that?
I don't remember that, gentlemen. I did.
I didn't have to dig too far. So I was checking all your stuff out there on Apple Music. Jim and I stream Apple Music, and it's the Little Anthony and the Imperials Essentials. So they gather it all together, like it would be an album, and that's your playlist. And at the very end, they have that. It's interesting.
That's nice.
It's called Careful Driving.
You guys played that. I never heard that before.
No.
So that's me, all right. Yeah.
I'm picturing all these cars, in the 50s and 40s, and no seatbelts, people driving wild. And they said we have to have a public service announcement about careful driving. Yeah. Who are we going to get to do that?
That's
so you don't.
What it was. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't remember it, huh?
Well, we take the people today take it for granted, but it wasn't until 1980 became mandatory, 79 or somewhere in there. You would think common sense would tell you if race car drivers wear it, why can't we? Why wouldn't you? You do know what I found out, and I know you guys are probably, I don't know for sure, but I would assume there's still people that have a trouble with a seatbelt. I don't know. I wonder why. Because I want a seatbelt, though. I'm doing 85 and 90 miles an hour. I want a seatbelt.
I know.
Because most of the time, in an accident, it's not the impact of the accident, though that's horrible. It's when you're thrown.
Yeah.
Your body is ripped into pieces. Literally just ripped apart.
I always put a seatbelt on.
Gravity takes over. It's over. Why would you wear your seatbelt?
My dad never liked to wear a seatbelt. But when he rode with me,
and you wonder, it's psychological. I really believe that because deep down inside, I think they knew it was right. But it's human nature to be rebellious. You tell no, you can't do that. You do it.
Yeah. But now you feel naked
if it's
if you
a law,
put it on,
and all of a sudden you do it. Yeah. Especially us Americans. We're so free. We almost we're so free in our thinking. We take for granted. I travel all over this world, gentlemen, and in Western countries and third world countries.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you something, man. I can't wait to get back here because with the freedom that we have is unique.
Yeah,
and it is something that I think I've always told people: freedom is not free. The kind of freedom that we have, we take for granted, man.
Oh, yeah.
Even in England, I don't care what all the Western countries, France, there's something about the American spirit. It's different. Yeah. We got that cowboy pioneer. Don't bother me, man. I know what I want to do. Leave me alone. And what happened was we found that this is what made America uniquely unique than all the other countries in the world outside of Israel. It's just unique. And that's one of the things that I found is that we have this. In us, we're so innately taught we're free. And so when somebody wants to take that freedom, and I'll give a little bit of it, it bothers you.
Yeah, it's
at least it bothers me.
We've got a democracy and it's working, and that's being a patriot.
Well, here's another thing, Jim. I don't tell you I'm a history. I'm what you call I'm not a history. I don't know what I am. I just love history.
And you want to say buff, but
But even a democracy means one vote, one man, but we don't work like that because, gentlemen, we are a republic because we have 50 different countries in one country.
Yeah.
We have a central government. Then we have all these states. Each one of these states has autonomy. Each one of these states have a government. Each one of these states have a constitution. Each state has different laws. So it's literally when I go to Washington state, then I end up in Arizona, it's like two different countries.
Yeah.
If you look at it. So we're democracy we're not one vote, one man. We have so many people, but we have concentrated people. There's more people that live in California than that lives in Idaho. So we have the electoral college. In order to make it fair, other countries is not that way because they ain't as big as we are.
No, there's not a lot of
fairness. So it's one vote, one man. That's a democracy. And our country is we work under, we are a republic. And I like to say that because if anybody goes back to the history, somebody once said not to know one's history is to be condemned to repeat it. And I think that people don't know enough of who they are and where they come from, because they lose it. And they're easily persuaded that someone comes along and want to change history. No good. History's history. Good and bad. Can't change it.
Yep.
So let's talk about Smokey Robinson.
My boy.
Now you were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Was it? I think it was 2009, wasn't it?
Class
But
of
you were
2009. Yeah.
yeah. So tell us like how did you meet Smokey, and do you still talk to Smokey?
Yeah.
You do.
I haven't talked to him because this pandemic came and kind of messed up everybody.
Yeah.
You know. And then I was in Disney World with my grandchildren, and I was on one of them water rides, and my phone got all logged. I forgot to put it in a plastic bag.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Put it in my back pocket.
Yeah.
His number was in there. Okay. So I got lazy, and then finally I said, I got to get his number. I got everybody in the business number just about.
Yeah.
And so I haven't talked to him, I think it was about maybe 8 months. We used to talk at least 3-4 times a year. We both met in 1959 at Goin and N Records. And Barry Gordy at that time was writing for Brunswick. He wrote a couple of Jackie Wilson's hits. Barry, people don't know Barry Gordy, one heck of a writer.
Yeah.
He had a lot of great songs he wrote.
Well, he founded Motown too, Barry Gordy.
Yeah, well, I met him there. He was trying to get something going in New York. He couldn't.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I met Smokey coming in the office, him and Pete, one of the Miracles.
Okay.
Later on, I met Bobby and all those guys. And we came in, so he came in the office. And they didn't have a record at all. They were trying to get a record deal. I don't know what happened, but it never worked out at the record company I was with. And I've heard that's when Barry got a little discouraged with it all and decided to go back to him and Smokey. They went back to Detroit.
Yeah.
And I guess Smokey or somebody, they just got together and kind of financed their own little recording. They might have been the first to really do it that way. And so over the years, we would always be in Detroit or something, and then we would talk to Smokey, or he would come over and see a show, we'd go over and see his show, or we just started going in and out of people's houses, and Bobby and all those guys, and became very intimate. That's why we call each other brothers.
Yeah.
Because they're Detroit brothers, we call them, and they're New York brothers. So we came up the same ranks. We felt all the pain and the sorrows of segregation. We went through all the triumphs and the failures and stuff. And Smokey was the one to try to get me. He introduced me to golf. And if I would have hung with him and Marvin, his guitar player, we used to be doing shows with Murray Decay in New York at the old Brooklyn Fox. And his dressing room was right down from mine. And they always be in there singing and playing between, just working on stuff. And I thought that was the most boring thing in the world. If I would have used my brain and sat in that room, I could have probably collaborated with them. Yeah. Who knows? It could have been written by Smokey Robinson.
And what were you doing in between sets? What were you doing in between sets that
doing things I shouldn't be doing? That's what I was doing.
Yeah. Out at the bar and other places.
Oh my! I was a bad boy. So Smokey. So we always were just always together. We did tours together. We did live with a guy on a bus for a month or 2 months. I mean, you get to know people very well. And so that's how we are. And in fact, when we were told that we were going to be inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he was a conductor of David Letterman.
Paul Schaefer.
Yeah. Paul. I've known Paul for years, and he's a Canadian dude, and he made well. And he was the one that called my publicist and said, I got an idea, man. He says, because he was on the committee, on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame committee. And he says, it's a shame Little Anthony Imperials are not. They should be, man. Their overall record, I mean, it's unbelievable, the things they've done. We never got a Grammy because the Grammys came out in 64.
Because it wasn't invented yet. There you go.
No, it wasn't invented yet, So if it was, we probably got one, we didn't get that stuff. So they were based upon that. That's how they were basing on their music. What they told us in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was they looked at our body of work and said, "Oh my goodness." It's like Sutton of the Dodgers, the pitcher. He wasn't like Koufax and did all that wonderful stuff. But if you look at his 15 years of pitching, my gosh, it's like Hank Aaron. I mean, he didn't, it took him 22 years. But when you look at it, that's how he broke that home run record. He was longevity. Yeah. And so they looked at our entire career, and that's how he got us to come on TV. And the next thing I know, we got the call that we were inducted into. We were on David Letterman show. Yeah. We did Hurt So Bad.
Yeah.
You can Google it if you want to see it.
What do you got there, Jim?
You can Google it.
I just got this at the record store.
Let me see.
For our listeners, we're showing the best of Little Anthony.
But at my local record store,
that's Beat Records. Yeah, that was a subset of United Arts. Yeah, so that was when Teddy Randazzo wrote most of the songs.
Oh yeah, that's what I noticed. There was one guy that wrote most of them.
Yeah, Teddy and Bobby Weinstein. Bobby Weinstein is my neighbor here in Florida.
Oh, okay.
I just talked to Bobby the other day. Yes, we talked to each other. All
Hurt so
Bobby
bad.
and Bobby Hart, all of us. We were New Yorkers. We were like kids in the street. Teddy was ahead of me. And Teddy would tell me, someday we're going to work together, man. We're going to work together. We did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote 95% of all those hits we had in the 70s. Yes.
You know, there's one song on here I've never heard called Take Me Back. I love that song.
Yes, Take Me Back. You Google it. It was top 20. It was a top 20 song. I think it was 15, actually. The Imperials weren't on that because we couldn't find Clarence. He was partying somewhere. Last minute, Teddy wanted to go in the studio. So we couldn't find a couple of the guys. So he says, you come in there, so Teddy just wrote parts for professional singers. And that was the first time I did an album by myself. I mean, that song. Take Me Back.
Well, but it turned out well,
Yes, it was a hit. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We sold quite a few records, I think close to 1 million.
So when you're touring, before COVID, how many shows were you doing a year?
I stopped counting.
Okay.
I tell people they want to know, just call, the BMI.
So it's a lot.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it's a lot.
But when you get, I just turned 80 years old, gentlemen.
Yeah.
And I don't count anymore. I gave up counting a long time ago. I just know I was working along, doing what I do. Yeah. And the next thing I know, when COVID came, the doors were shut. No one thought it was going to be this long. Not one entertainer I know. I talked to everybody. We were on the phones just the other day. I was talking to Sonny Turner, and we were talking. We said, man, we didn't think it was going to be almost a year and a half. I'm actually going back, officially, to work for the first time since last March in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut in July. Okay. But they kept moving. They kept moving it and moving it, moving. You know why? Remember I just talked about we're a republic. Each state has its own rules and laws. Yeah. It just happened the states we were working in were much more stringent. Than say Florida was, or Alabama was, or Georgia was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And the pandemic decided to move its own way too. It was stronger in this state and stronger in that state, and the pandemic.
Because gentlemen, I'm not gonna go there because unfortunately things will take it and became politicized. So that's all I gotta say about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But all I know is it's leaving. It's leaving us, and goodbye.
Yes.
Goodbye. We're gonna face other challenges. As long as we're on this earth, we're gonna face other challenges. Yeah. You guys are pretty young, you guys. This is not my first rodeo. It's not my first crisis.
We're not that young.
I've been through a crisis, I cannot tell you. I went through a crisis called the Hong Kong flu. And the Hong Kong flu killed, it's just about as many people as this thing did. And you know what? There were no masks. There was nothing. No one knew it was bad. We just thought it was like okay, it's too bad. Charlie hit it. Yeah. Well, too bad for Charlie. I'm okay. Yeah. I got the flu, but I'm okay. That's how that was. And this was much more hideous, insidious. It became a pandemic, which the Hong Kong flu was. But this was more insidious. But what was more insidious about it, gentlemen, was it was politicized.
Yeah, I
wonder sometimes the cure ain't worse than the symptom. Because I don't have a death wish. I do everything I'm supposed to do. Yeah, wear the mask, do this. I wear my mask every walk out of this house. Right. I do all those things. But here in Florida, we're in a position where we have a little more, better, I think, leadership. So we were long past that point that some other states are in, that are still in. California is rebelling. It's so bad, but so bad that I think the governor's days are short there. But it's just ridiculous. There's no reason, because now we have the vaccine, right? Now we have another vaccine called the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's supposed to be the bomb.
Yeah, it's third one. Yeah,
I got a shot the other. Yeah, I got a shot, but I got the second one.
Yeah,
the 24.
Johnson & Johnson's just one.
But this Johnson & Johnson is supposed to be the bomb. Yeah.
When you put it all together, it's going to be helping. And this is we're finally.
Oh my gosh!
We're finally peaking that it's going to be on its way out. And we're really looking forward.
I check with other states. If you go and you Google, you can see where they really have charts to tell you who's who. And at one point it was spiking, and now it's kind of leveled off. In some cases, you can see it. The chart is going down and down. And so that's good news, man. And that's so happy. I don't know about you guys, but I'm happy.
Oh yeah,
I want to go to work.
We're really looking forward to seeing live music. We're missing the live music.
Love
My wife said, "I remember will you remember the words, hon? Will you remember what to do?" I said, "I don't know."
When you tour, are there any other original members of the Imperials?
Oh no, gentlemen, you're talking about 65 years. I mean, people.
Yeah,
I was just wondering.
Go on. And plus the Imperials, it's a brand. It's like the Temptations is a brand. There's no original Temptations except for Otis.
Yeah.
Same with us. There's no original group nowhere. Either they're not the original group, or they don't exist anymore, or they passed on and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
If you see other groups calling themselves the Drifters and this and that, if it doesn't say Charlie Thomas, this is just knockoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And no, we've had so many Imperials. I can actually show you that picture you had on that album.
Yeah.
I've had fans are really into it. They sent me different pictures of. We have so many different Imperials. That's the original guys. That's Ernest. That's at least I can't point. That's Clarence, myself, Sammy Strain went with the OJs for many years, and Ernest Wright. Ernest Wright is the one that's there. Clarence retired, Sammy retired, so Ernest is the only one left. But on other albums, you see Kenny Seymour, you see Howard Jenkins, you see Nathaniel Rogers, you see Tracy Lord. There's so many Imperials. People wouldn't know who's who. I can bring any bunch of black guys that come on stage. They
know
don't
you, though.
as long as it sounds that way.
You.
Yeah, we've done a lot of different interviews.
But they cut me out of the herd, like me and Smokey talked about it. They cut us out of the herd.
We've done a lot of different interviews, and we've gone from a young local musician to a lot of national acts and stuff. But no one has the longevity that you have, Anthony. This is 65 years of professional work. I mean,
well, Chuck Negron.
Yeah.
We interviewed Chuck Negron.
Yeah, but how many years is it? 65? Not quite.
He was in the
Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett.
Oh yeah.
Tony Bennett's had the longest career of all of us.
Yeah.
Tony did. I mean, he's been under the weather lately, but other than that, I mean, man's 94, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's not it's a blessing, number one. And I said, what my daughter says, Dad, you don't act like your age, you don't look like your age, you don't do anything at your age.
Yeah, well, I
when I go to
that's true as well.
Disney World, I know Disney World, I'm on roller coasters. Now the doctors will tell you, don't go in there, you can get a heart attack. You ever see the signs when you go in them rides?
Yeah. Well, you
won't ride anything if you look at the signs. I just said, well, that may be so, but I feel fine.
Yeah.
So I enjoy with the kids. What happens is all the grandchildren want to go where grandmom and granddaddy is because they, like my grandson Trey said once, he said, my grandparents, they're cool. Yeah. Man, they like, whoa. We can't get them out of this house. Why? Because we're doing stuff. We're outdoors with this. We're going fishing. We're doing this. Yeah. We're going there. We're climbing this with them. And they're like, they don't look at us. So maybe that's part of that longevity.
Or keeping active.
It's a blessing. It is. It's really something unique. And I never thought, I keep looking at it, I see it and I go, oh my goodness, dude, you're 80 years old. And then another part of me says, so.
Yeah.
Because inside me is this 25-year-old dude, alive and well. There he is.
Yeah, with the wisdom of an 80-year-old.
Yeah, he wants to have fun. He wants to enjoy life and look at and help and do things to make people feel better and feel better about himself. Yeah, that's who I am. Mm-hmm. So is that part of that longevity and the blessing of God? But good.
Yeah,
and being happy.
That's good. Yeah.
Well,
and like I said, the people ask me, they'll ask me, how do you sing like that? Oh my goodness, I'm just talking to a guy yesterday, of a group from Hawaii called the Islanders, and they want me to do a guest thing for them for Hawaii for their thing, and do a recording with them. And we were talking, and he said, we were just talking about you in the same key that you was in there. How do you have that? I said, not me. I was a wild child. So it ain't because I drank milk and went to bed at 9 o'clock. No, it's not natural. It's supernatural.
Right. And from those days where you weren't drinking milk and going to bed at 9 or 10, you learn so much and you have the wisdom. I mean, and we're hearing that, we're hearing the wisdom of 80 years to go from that to all the inspirational things you were saying, about your faith and such, the wisdom.
Well,
there's wisdom there.
yeah.
I mean, you might be too humble to accept that compliment, but.
Well, no, I ain't that humble. If you give me some money, I'll take it. I ain't humble. But it's like what the Bible says: the beginning of wisdom is the awe and the awesomeness of your God. Wisdom is not something you can obtain. It comes from your experiences. Now, a lot of people got knowledge, but they don't have no wisdom.
Right.
And so because there are people my age, I hate to say this, man, they haven't advanced from the day they was 22. I mean, it's crazy, but I have run into people like that. They're just as confused as they ever were.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
what I'm
not
saying.
Like
You're growing,
not automatic.
right?
Not automatic. Yeah, it's not automatic. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, you're
I think
purposefully
it's a desire. I think
growing.
Desire. Yeah. I think it's a desire to want to know, to be curious about everything.
Yeah, great.
To want to know what makes that tick and why and where did that come from and all that. And in time, you get so much information that you don't even know. When I'm talking, it'll come out. So, like I had a lady once tell me, well, I don't understand because it says here in this book in 1955 that you did this and 58 you did this and did that. And I said, well, I don't know what the book says, but I was there. Like, no, I was you're talking to God. I was there. So if I tell you something, if I tell you something, I hang on it. That's what happened. If I just told you about Elvis, that happened.
Yeah.
I can tell you, you got a couple of days, we can keep talking like this. All the other people that I know in the business, and people I've experienced, political people, this one, the people of the great ones, the millionaires, the billionaires, the trillionaires, the queens, the kings, all these people.
Well,
I'm from Brooklyn.
We have a mutual friend, by the way, you and I.
Who be that?
Do you know a person by the name of John Kennedy? John Kennedy. Right?
Yes. John from Jersey. He's a great sound man. He was like one of the best in the business.
Yeah, he lives 5 minutes from me.
Yeah.
And
he does.
Because I'm a huge fan of the Smithereens.
New Jersey band.
And I know the guys. I know them very well.
This is what's weird. I've gone to 35, 40 shows. But I only met him a couple years ago. I never ran into him, but I ran into him at the ShopRite down the street, the ShopRite I go to.
Isn't that weird? After all these Smithereens shows.
I was wearing a Smithereens shirt. And he was sitting in his car, and he goes, "The Smithereens suck."
As a joke.
And I went over and talked to him.
That's John. That's Johnny.
Yeah. And I print for him. I own a print shop. So I print for the Smithereens. I mean, he told me he's been trying to get you to record with the Smithereens. Unfortunately, the lead singer passed away.
He was doing it for years. I mean, for years he wanted to do something. A lot of people do, man. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of stuff out there. But the business has changed a great deal, as you know. The recording business especially has just changed. And so those things that we wanted to do, we probably could have done 20 years ago. But now it's more difficult. Yeah. It's just like the guy from Hawaii. The Islanders, they wanted to do stuff with me. The Society 7, people from Europe. What's the name of, he was from the group Oasis. Yeah, he was telling me, he says, hey, mate.
Noel Gallagher.
He says, boy, wouldn't it be great if we're together and you do this and then, we blow it all out. I tell you, we blow it all out. And like, I'm going, what do you mean, man?
Well, you have to want to do that, Anthony. You have to want to.
Roll.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's really, I do it. I have Latin cats call me all the time. They want to do the boogaloo thing. I just talked to one of my friends the other day, Joe Patan, one of the great guys of the people doing in the salsa era. He's been trying to get me together and doing this. He's going to put this band together, and we're going to do a Latin thing. Okay, because I came up in that era, and I hung with him. My daughter's mother is Latin; she's Puerto Rican, so that's my other people. So he wanted to do something that would show how much I knew how that worked.
Are there any?
And so I love to do all those things. But my son called me the other day and said, Dad, you can't do everything for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to
Because
want to
you
do it.
get
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And you've got lots of options.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, you've got.
He's looking from a business standpoint. He's looking at it. Well, it'll be like maybe a conflict of interest. Because I just did a thing with George Benson. George just finished the thing. We did a couple of things together. He just did it, the guitar thing, a whole guitar thing. We did it going out of my head in jazz for Sirius Radio.
I was going to ask you.
Very cool.
You'll hear a little man singing jazz. Nobody's heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if
they will hear it.
Recorded recently.
All the time. Yeah, I got a song we just did with produced by Kenny Burke. Used to be with the 5 Stair Steps, and a lot of people. And we're doing a thing now, and it's really for a documentary. We're trying to put this together for Netflix. That's a long story, but until we nail it. But there are some people, very heavyweights in Hollywood, love it. And that's where the money's going to come from. They're going to sort of back us. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. While this pandemic was going on, really, in a way, I can't call it a blessing because it's no blessing.
Yeah.
But it turned out in many ways to work for people like me because I was able to begin to do experimenting things that I would normally been able
to do. You got more time. More time than just touring it.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, like I can't. Like we were able to really do it. We had nothing else to do but to do it.
Yeah.
And so we were able to do a lot of things. So as this thing weans out and it gets going, those things will pop up. But like that's why my son told me, Dad, you can't do all these things because it'd be a conflict of interest. And he's my manager.
Yeah, there you go.
And so he says, I'm really worried about that, Dad. So you can't say, I know you, Dad. You just want to do with everybody. Yeah, it's fine. There's a lot going on. Believe me, a lot.
Yeah. And you're really staying active at 80. Got to really hand it to you.
Before we go, it was great talking to you.
Excellent talking
to you guys.
Great meeting you.
Are you on social media at all? Like Facebook?
No, I'm not. I will comment, but I'm not a commentary. I don't do commentary. Okay. If somebody says something makes sense, then I'll comment about it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Do you have a website?
LittleAnthonyImperials.org or .com.
Okay.
We changed it so many times.
Okay.
One of those two.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah. It was great.
Your stories are wonderful. You're inspiring, and I think our listeners will be inspired too by what keeps you going. And it's just been great meeting you and talking to you.
And I'm going to eat some cookies in a minute. That'll keep me going. Thank you, guys.
You take care. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Take me back, I'm begging, please. Take me back, I'm on my knees. For you to scold me, hurt me, hold me. Darling, take me back when you belong to me. I have a jealous mind. Too late I learned that you were not the cheating kind. Take me back.
Today's interview was recorded on Zoom and at Did You Say
7
Studios in Washington, New Jersey. Go to the YouTube channel for exclusive video content. Exit music by the band 99%. Today's show was produced and edited by Jim Thatcher. You can find Jim and Mike talk music on Apple Music, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The songs Hurt So Bad and Take Me Back, used with permission from Little Anthony.